Hi, I'm Phil. This is Phil with Phacts, and today we are making Blaand from goat's milk. So yes, today we are making Blaand from goat's milk. Why are we using goat's milk? Well, I did a little research on Blaand and the history of it, and it turns out that, yes, cows are native to Scotland. They're actually, the Highland cow is actually the oldest known breed of cattle registered in the world. So yes, they had cows, ergo they had cow milk. That's fun and well. However, they're not really known for being big milk production cows, which means they probably didn't have tons of extra milk lying around. Maybe they did ferment with it, maybe they didn't. I actually couldn't find one way or the other. What I do know is that goats have been in Scotland for over 8,000 years. And they are used for cheese, milk, and meat. They are bred for it, or were bred for it. They are no longer bred for milk, cheese, or meat because they are an endangered species because of overproduction. So I thought, why not give a go at a Blaand made with goat's milk? And that was my thought behind it. So why don't you come with me today? We're going to make a Blaand out of goat's milk, and it's going to be a good time. So what will you need today to make this Blaand? We're going to need a gallon of goat milk. We're going to need 2 pounds of honey. Local is great. Anything you can buy that says raw unfiltered is great. Try not to buy anything that says filtered or over processed or anything that might be not honey or you're questioning it. We're using 71B because I have a ton of it. I gotta start using it. We're gonna use some lemon juice from a bottle because the lemons at the store today didn't look great. I didn't want to use them. This is gonna work just as well. I never had goat milk before. I've never brewed with goat milk before. I'm not really sure what to expect. I do have this feeling that goat milk is going to separate a little bit easier than the cow's milk or the whole milk I normally use, because while this is pasteurized, it says nothing about homogenized, so I don't think it was. And if it's not, it'll separate nicely and give us big curds of cheese more or less and separate all that whey out. I don't know. I'm just guessing. We're also going to use slightly less than a gallon today because I kind of want to try this. I've never had it before. I kind of know what to expect. It's definitely a little thicker than normal milk. It's a little bit more pungent. It has like almost a bitter taste. Actually, funny enough, when I taste it, it kind of tastes like goat cheese. Go figure, right? Who would have thought it? Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and turn this into whey. If you want to know how to turn milk into whey, follow my video below that explains how to turn milk into whey. I'm doing the exact same process, and we'll see what we get. I'll see you guys in a minute. So, it was interesting trying to turn my goat milk into whey. I learned a few things, and I'll share them with you. It took about twice as much lemon juice as I normally put into it to get it to start separating. When it did start separating, the curds were tiny and super soft. And as I was trying to remove them from the whey, they were just mixing right back in. So, I made a couple of decisions. My first decision, I'm going to use it as is because I know the curds are going to fall out of suspension through fermentation. Not a problem. My second thing, I know I'm going to lose a lot more product than normal, so I took an additional quart of cow's milk and I made whey. You'll see how this is a much greener color than this. There's even a little bit of separation here. So, brilliant. We'll get these going, and then after fermentation, I'm going to collect the curds, and maybe we'll make a fermented goat cheese. I'm not sure yet, but I kind of want to see how that turns out. Now, we're going to start by taking our scale, placing our bucket on it, making sure the unit's correct. I'm going to work with pounds and ounces because that's what I'm used to. Tearing it. And I'm going to add 2 pounds of our honey. I don't think I'm going to get a full gallon out of this. If I do get a full gallon, it's going to be like right spot on. So I'm only going to start with 2 pounds. If it goes through and I have more product, we could always start a second fermentation with it, or we could do other things to bring the alcohol volume up if we want it there. I think 2 pounds is very safe. I think it's going to give the yeast enough to work with, and I think it's going to make a fantastic blend. We're going to pour. Next we're going to add our goat milk whey, because it's not really a separated whey at all. Which is fine. I planned on doing a couple of experiments, which was, can we make blend without separating the curds and whey at the beginning? And I want to try again with liquid renin and see what that, see how hot it is, all the steam. We don't need the scale anymore. We're going to get rid of that. Yeah, I'm going to get some liquid renin, and I'm also going to try making the more or less cheese and see if that separates it better or makes better curds or more workable curds. Because this is a step-by-step experiment, more or less. The blends I've made so far I think are delicious, but I'm always going to want to find easier and more fun ways, more convenient ways to make it. Next I'm going to add my cow milk whey. And I'm actually not going to pour the rest of those curds in, because why add more curds to this? There's already enough of them in there. We're going to give this a nice stir, get all the honey incorporated, which should be super easy because of how hot this liquid is. And those are really going to be all the components today of our must. Now, there is one problem, and that is if I pour my yeast in right now, I'm going to kill it. This is way too hot. And if I take a gravity reading right now, it's probably not going to be all that accurate, since your hydrometers are calibrated to a certain temperature, usually around 60 degrees. So we're going to stir this up nicely, and then I'm going to do something radical and mind-blowing. I'm going to take the lid with the hydrometer in it, and I'm just going to loosely put it on so that the steam can still escape. But I want it to cool down. I don't want anything to get in here while it's cooling down. But I'm going to let it cool down to room temperature. I'm not going to aid it. I'm not going to help it in any way, shape, or form. I'm just going to let it sit and get to the temperature it needs to get. Okay, so now this is cool. It's cool to the touch. What I did was I loosely put the lid on. I let it sit for about 2 hours. I then put it in my fridge. I then put it in the fridge. Once it was fully cool, I then took it out. I let it warm up a little bit, probably about an hour. So, all in all, it's been sitting around for about 6 hours now. So you don't have to worry about your must all that much. Once you make a must, it's pretty safe to let it sit for a little while. Of course, you don't want to let it sit out all night, especially not a bland must, because that's milk. And with dairy, you don't want to keep it in a temperature danger zone like that. However, they're pretty durable. So after it starts to cool down and it's cool enough to put in the fridge, you could refrigerate it. Before I'd pitch the yeast or take a gravity, I would let it come back up to temp a little bit. So as I said, I took it out, I let it sit for an hour. I'd say it's pretty room temperature, maybe a little colder right now, but that's fine. We're now going to take a gravity reading and see where we're at. And we are at a 1.090. I'm just going to take a note of that real quick. All right, so now I'm thinking I'm going to add a little bit more honey, mix it up again, because 1.020 is going to be its final gravity, more or less, is where I think it's going to end, because there is lactose in this. With the lactose, it is going to always have a little bit of gravity left. So at a 1.090, even if I lose some of the curd and it falls out suspension, I'm not looking at a high gravity at all. That's going to be under 10%, and I don't think that's going to be what I'm aiming for with this. So I added about another 10 ounces of honey. I'm going to give this a quick little stir. Make sure the honey's all mixed up. Make sure nothing actually fell back out of suspension. That's not the best tool for this job because I'm actually feeling the honey on the bottom. If you don't mix this enough, if you don't get all the honey into the solution, you're not going to have an accurate gravity reading. The yeast will eat honey that's just sitting on the bottom that wasn't mixed in. But you're not going to know that that gravity was even in here. So you're not going to have an accurate gravity at the end. So you're not going to know what's in your brew or what it did. Also, if there's too much honey and your brew stalls, that'll be the reason, but you're not going to know how much. And you're not going to know how to fix it. When you have a cooler beverage, you're going to have to stir. And when you think you're done, you're still going to go for a little while just to make sure. All right, let's try this again. Much better. So we're looking at a 1.0, no. So we're looking at a 1.110. I'm going to put what the gravity will be if we drop down to a 1.020 right here. But I'm positive that that is above a 10%. So everything should work out great. I was a little worried with this one just because of the extra citrus in it. If it's too acidic, it could give the yeast a little bit of a hard time. Alright, so we have our must. It's at an acceptable gravity. It's at a good temperature to pitch our yeast. So the next thing we're going to do is pitch our yeast. I'm going to use a whole packet today. Again, this is a blend. There's not a whole lot extra adjuncts in here for the yeast to work with. They really just have honey and that's it. So we'll give them their best shot at making an active colony. And we'll use a whole packet to make sure that that happens. Alright, once your yeast is in, your must is done and fermentation will start shortly. How fast? I normally see a fermentation start within 2 hours. It could take as long as 24 hours, depending on your environment, what the temperature is. There's a million other factors. So if you don't see bubbling right away, don't panic. If 24 hours goes by and you don't see anything, you probably have dead yeast. The must might have been a little too hot, so you shocked them and they died. It could be an older packet of yeast, so there was nothing left in it. There's other factors. If nothing happens within 24 hours, add more yeast. That should correct it. If you're adding from the same batch, it could just be an old batch of yeast. So try a different strain, try a different brand. But generally, it should happen pretty quickly. And with blends, I've noticed they really take off. It's really going to erupt. That's why I'm doing it in a bucket today. It's not because I don't want to use a carboy or because I'm worried that I'm not going to have enough space once I do. It's that I've seen these really take off, and I've seen them overtake a carboy really quick. So we're going to start it in the bucket, and after fermentation is done, we'll then move it to a carboy for secondary. And there's a lot of possibilities of what we're going to do in secondary. This is new territory. I haven't made a blend with honey before. I haven't made a blend with goat's milk before. I'm not sure what's going to happen after fermentation, but you guys will see as I see. So, why don't you guys join me for the final facts. And we have made it to the final facts. So, today we made a blend. We used goat milk and we used honey as our liquid and our fermentable sugar. So we're going to have quite the unique blend, aren't we? I'm excited, I can't wait. If we learned anything today, it's that we have to be willing to make adjustments. So it's important to take a gravity reading, know what you're aiming for, know what you're looking for, and then adjusting accordingly. Because otherwise, we might have made a very low ABV blend. We might have made something that we might not have made what we were aiming for, and that would have been sad. Some things to know about goat milk. Goat milk has more potassium and a little bit more protein than normal milk. So when I say normal milk, I mean cow milk. It's not normal or abnormal. It's just a different ingredient that we're using today. And there's some benefits, and there's going to be some flavor differences that we will find out when it's done fermenting. All in all, I'm excited about this one. I think it's going to be a wonderful blend at the end, and I think we made something that I might not have been able to taste otherwise, because I don't know where on earth I would go to find a blend fermented from goat's milk. But hey, that's why we do this. That's why we experiment. That's why we create. So we can find out all these new and exciting things that maybe we wouldn't have tasted otherwise, or maybe we didn't know we liked, or maybe we didn't know enough about, and now we do. Anyway, if you liked today's video, please like it, subscribe, leave me a comment. All is good. Until next time, guys, I'm Phil. This is Phil with Phacts, and cheers.